this is my presentation for the ISDS International Spanish Diplomacy Seal. So for the courses that I've taken 13 AP courses over the span of my 4 high school years at LOA. And I have found through process of elimination that these have been the ones that stood out most to me in establishing cross-cultural connections. And those include AP Human Geography, AP United States History, AP Spanish Language and Composition, AP World History, and AP Spanish Literature and Culture. And also side note, all of these pictures I have taken are mine, plus a poster that Maddie made for our Choose of Service, and I'll get into that later. So this is the view that we had in Salamanca when we were touring around, and we got to see some cool places there. And we'll go more in detail in a second about that as well. So the impact of the classes that I've taken. So for AP Human Geography, it was looking at things like gross domestic product, crude birth rate, crude death rate, and just the development of nations politically and also economically, and also nation states as cultures. And that was the first time that it had been highlighted to me about the importance of understanding other nations so much, because before, grade school wise, it's usually centered on America and that sort of thing. But this is the first time that I really had a global push, and I learned some things about places that I had never learned before. We even had to memorize nations on the world map, and you're so surprised by how many you didn't know before that you had to know for this test that we had first week of school, actually. So that was interesting. So for AP US History and AP World History, it changed the way I perceived history, because as has been mentioned before, we place a lot of emphasis on Europe, Eurocentric history, that sort of thing, and we usually never give the adequate amount of credit to Latin American nations and Asian nations and African nations for their own histories. And it's just that kind of culture that we've created. And so these two classes together have just shown me the world on a much more holistic, honestly. It's all over the place. It's not just one group, it's everyone, and it's just the differences that make us people. And so next I have AP Spanish Language. And so in that, when we talked politics, we talked religion, we talked economics, and it was all centered on Latin American nations. And you just really begin to realize how much you didn't know about the world beforehand. And it becomes so much more personal too, because it's not just political, it's these people's lives, and it's their well-being, and it's how their family works, and the dynamics of their religion, and all of these things that accumulate into your understanding of people who are different from you, but who are also the same as you. And so then lastly, I have AP Spanish Literature and Culture. And so that one has introduced me to so many complex works. I mean, just by knowing another language, you have the ability, essentially, the amount of things that you can read has doubled, because you have an extra language and you can read so many things in their native text, because translations sometimes aren't always accurate, and it's also up to personal interpretation. But when you're reading, this is exactly what it is in Spanish. This is how I perceive it to be. That has been truly an incredible blessing to have. So next, I have extracurriculars. So I have the Spain trip, Shoes of Service, which was AP Service Project. And then I also have my classes, but since I have already talked about them, I'm just gonna focus on Spain and Shoes of Service. So for my Spanish trip, so before I had taken Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Honors Spanish 3, and then I went to AP Spanish Language. And so I had always had Spanish before, but as I have said, I am such a lover of history. I'm a huge history buff, and I just love to appreciate old things. It's just so much fun. And so for me, my love of Spanish was really solidified when we went to Spain, because you're there and you're present, and in that moment, you're surrounded by these buildings that are thousands of years old. And it's just something that's, again, everyone has said, it's just different. It's unlike anything else. It's angels on the ceiling. It was beautiful. And then you have the Alhambra in Granada, where the Muslims surrendered the last of their empire in Spain in 1492. I mean, it's crazy because you think there's no way that this happened here, but you end up in that place and you can just see the history come alive around you, and it's incredible. Again, as we've talked about the Roman ruins in Merida, so many stories about that. It was raining and it was very cold, and Miss Chronic really helped us out because we had no idea where we were going. We ended up on a bridge somewhere 2 miles away from those ruins and then had to go back and find them. I mean, all over the place. But getting there and just Roman ruins, I mean, it's crazy to just think about, because you think of all of the civilizations hundreds and thousands of years ago, and you know how they lived versus how we live, and just the intricacy of the buildings and the artwork and everything that they've inspired, and how that affects us now. You know, like even drainage and water working systems. Like the Romans created that, and it's an incredible experience to be able to see it firsthand, and you know, really give them credit, because you know, we take a lot of things like that for granted and don't really realize the backstory behind how things were developed. And when you have the opportunity to travel to a place and see that, it's just wonderful. So I do have some pictures of the times we were in there. Here we have the Alhambra. We have the Plaza Mayor in Salamanca. It snowed there. It was beautiful. And they had the little Christmas decorations. Of course, chocolate and churros, because Hezi really had those up, so we had to get some, obviously.
For good reason.
The Roman ruins in Merida, some classmates we met and had friends with when we were studying in Salamanca. La Mezquita Catedral de Cordoba with the candy cane arches and all that sort of stuff. Again, the Alhambra here, and then obviously my favorite cathedral, Toledo here. I mean, it's incredible. And then me and Anna at the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca on our final day when we were there. So, Shoes of Service was a service project that the AP Spanish Lang class last year really spearheaded. So, essentially, our class as a whole went, and first off, we have Maddie to thank for this wonderful poster. But we handled press, we handled the flyers being put up, we talked to different classes, we had reward systems put in place. You know, the people who bring the most amount of shoes from a certain class gets this and this, to really just encourage people to participate. And we collected so many shoes to give to these needy people in the Dominican Republic. And you know, we aren't able to be there, but just seeing these kids and you know, all of your new shoes is just such an amazing thing to be able to say that you were a part of, and I just really appreciated that so much. So the community service projects, I have my PB&J ministry, Rivers Alive through Beta Club, and the American Red Cross Blood Drive, also through Beta Club. So for the PB&J ministry, my church takes this on, and so every fourth Sunday, my youth group and I make peanut butter sandwiches and sack lunches, and then we take them to the homeless community in downtown Athens and distribute them. And so this has established cross-cultural understanding, because you realize that homelessness doesn't affect, you know, one group of people. It really affects everyone. You can be of any kind of ethnicity, of any kind of race, of any kind of socioeconomic background. It happens to everyone, and that really hits home when you're there and you're talking with people who have had lives that are, you know, completely different and are changed by homelessness. For Rivers Alive, essentially we, as the Beta Club members, get together and we collect trash and we get it off the sides of the roads to have a better environment here in Greensboro, Georgia. And that has affected cross-cultural awareness, because you realize that pollution is not just a local problem, it's a global problem. And we see it all over the place. Coral reefs are dying because of pollution, and sea turtles are getting trapped in plastic and all of these things. And it really just shows you that, even by starting small, you can really make a big impact. And that's what Rivers Alive does. It kind of opens you to this nice introduction of, hey, I want to help save my planet, and I can start small, but I can also go big if I choose to do so. And lastly, the blood drive. So everything we do for Beta Club at the American Red Cross Blood Drive is very organized and methodical, and there's a very nice approach to it. And this establishes cross-cultural awareness because you realize when you study in AP Spanish language that a lot of people in Latin American countries sometimes don't have the access to healthcare. They don't have the access to the resources that are required for basic life-saving surgery. And there's corruption. There's doctors who are being paid off, and there's just so many things that are going wrong. And you really just begin to see the world, and you think about how bad it is, but you also think, how can I fix this, and how can I help? And so these community service projects, all three together, plus other ones that have been mentioned, are just really wonderful at establishing your understanding of the world. And you have to understand how it's bad, but you can also understand how you can make it better in order to be able to do that. So, takeaway. I've gained multiple perspectives, and I am a global citizen. And it's an amazing thing to be, because you're involved in so many things, and you've got your hand in so many different things, and it just comes together to make you a much more well-rounded person. You know about the environment, you know about the politics, and you know about the people. And you can just relate to others and their experiences more through that as well. And so for my future, I plan to attend the University of Georgia. I'm majoring in biology, but I'm also minoring in psychology and Spanish. And I'm doing this because, one, I have gained the credentials through taking these Spanish courses, APs, to be able to have that opportunity presented, but also because you're opening doors, because mental illness is a serious issue, and you want to make it so that as many people who can be helped by you as possible get the help that they need. And I, as a psychiatrist, because that is my plan, that's what I want to do, I want to be able to help as many people as I can. And if that means understanding another language and being able to talk with my patients in Spanish, then that means that's exactly what